Hi there. So I was going to upload a video, but I was interrupted near the end of it, so I had to scrap that entire video because I'm not good at editing at all. I'm like really bad at editing, and I can't just cut entire sections out of a video because I don't have those kind of skills yet. But basically, all I'm doing, this video is just about. So I made a video about 8 days ago about this funny little fictional world I've created. This funny little fictional world I've created. Hopefully the aspect ratio or whatever is good on this video. I don't really know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about aspect ratio, but never mind. But yeah, so this video centers around the elves. And I've done a little bit of lore for the elves, the three different types, the high elves, the blood elves, and the night elves. I'm trying to speak differently to how I did in that other video because I despise having to repeat myself. I can't stand it. But basically, I did a chart here, but other information I made later on kind of actually contradicts slash retcons this. Basically, this is how the high elves view the other elven races. They view it as the blood elves, split off from them via selective breeding. That is true. That is actually true. And the night elves split off from the blood elves via a magic curse. That is completely incorrect. That has been retconned by my other information. But what is still true is the elves are. They originally came from what is now the North Pole, back when it was more habitable. And it was what's called Elfheim. And there was a big original Elven kingdom, the original kingdom. Can't think of a name for it, doesn't matter. But they migrated from there down to this continent with, the drow, the fairies, and all the beast men. And eventually it turned into this. The High Elf Imperium, the Blood Elf Bastion, and the Night Elf Principality, with all these different little things going on here on this continent. But basically, I've compiled. I'm bad at writing, but basically, I've just done. I've done this, where this is information all about the High Elves. They have what distinguishes them from the other types is they have very pale skin to the point of it almost looking like snow in terms of the color, like snow white as snow. That kind of skin tone is what they have. They and they have platinum colored hair and silver eyes. They're very tall. They stand 6 to 7 feet tall on average. They're very lean, but they have very powerful muscles. But their muscles aren't really show. They're more sort of internal. But they're very lean to the point of almost appearing anorexic. But they have very powerful muscles where they can leap great heights. Like the top of a tree, like, I don't know, an oak tree or something. And they can run vast distances, way more than a human. So, like, just imagine a super athlete, like an absolute Olympian type individual, but an entire race of basically Olympians, pretty much. But they suffer from a massive flaw of they're so egotistical that they literally do not respect other sentient life. Like they're literally incapable of respecting other sentient life because of how egotistical they are, because they're so up themselves. They believe they're superior to everyone else, even other elves. Obviously, that's why they're called the high elves, because that's a whole other thing. But basically, now here's the blood elves. I think, to be honest, they're my favourite because the night elves are kind of contrived. They're a bit over complex. I made the night elves a bit over complex, but we'll get to that in a minute. The blood elves are basically like your wholesome, friendly elves. They're very different from. Well, they don't have the superiority complexes of the high elves. Let's just say that. But they were born from selective breeding by a faction of elves after a massive civil war, and that's what broke up the original elven kingdom on the continent. Um, yeah, the high elves view them. They despise the high elves. They are disgusted by the high elves. They view the high elves as egotistical to the point of sociopathy, if that's even a real word. I know sociopathy is, but yeah, they view the high elves as egotistical sociopaths basically, and they're very distinct from the high elves in the sense where they're a lot more genetically diverse. Blood elves, they're very short as well. They're basically manlets. They're pretty much short kings. They're from 4 foot tall to 5'11". You won't get a high elf. You won't get a blood elf that is any taller than like at most 6 foot. Like literally 6 foot. You will not get a blood elf that's any taller than that. Unless there's some kind of genetic, mutation or whatever. But they have a very wide lisp, a very wide not a lisp, but just misspoke. Very wide range of hair colors and eye colors, from dirty blonde to ginger and even dark brown hair, and then their eyes range from burgundy, so like that sort of that red, to emerald green to amber and gold. Again, so they're very genetically diverse. And I didn't really write this down, but basically they're a lot more tan. I wouldn't say like mixed race, like mixed race people, like that kind of tan. No, a lot less than that. More like white person stays out in the sun, gets a suntan kind of tan. They're kind of like that. But yeah, so they're very genetically diverse, and they're just a wholesome bunch of people. They can get along with others quite easily, even all the different beast men. But if they feel threatened in any way, they will get brutally violent. I'm talking war crimes. I'm talking berserk type violence, that kind of shiz. That kind of stuff. They will go turbo into like war crimes and stuff if they ever get threatened. They really will. So they're wholesome on the surface and they're quite diplomatic. But if anyone threatens them, they will go absolute war crime mode on them. Like, they don't know what the Geneva Convention is. It's not even a suggestion. It's more like they would use it as toilet paper, basically. Because war is war to them. They're not about, you can't kill civilians. They're very, very violent in war. And, yeah. So they're wholesome, really, but if they're threatened, they go turbo violent. But yeah, they're sort of like the, I don't know what equivalent would be. Maybe wood elves from Elder Scrolls. And the high elves, these high elves, they're like the equivalent of the Altmer or the high elves from the Elder Scrolls as well, in terms of their superiority, almost Nazi-like obsession with genetics. But the night elves are very interesting. They're very contrived, though, in the sense where they're like, they're so mysterious. But here's what I did with the night elves. The night elves, or a faction of elves, that was subjected to a terrible curse where they basically gained knowledge of the universe, pretty much knowledge of the universe, cosmic knowledge, building blocks of how reality works type knowledge. But in exchange, they completely lost all ability to feel any sense of empathy. Like, they're literally biologically incapable of feeling empathy. It is literally something that they literally cannot do. They cannot feel empathy. Not in a malicious way, more like they literally cannot feel the emotion of empathy. And there might be other side effects to the curse that I haven't delved into because I don't know, this is just a side thing for me. This whole thing is a side thing. But basically, yeah. And the inspiration for them, for their appearance, if what they look like is a light purple. I'm not really focusing on my writing at all, if you can tell, because my writing's kind of terrible. I have very messy writing. It's actually quite bad, but I'm not really focusing on it at all. Just listen to my voice instead. But basically, their skin is from a light purple to a literal pitch black. So that they look very alien, even more alien than, I don't know, the Dunmer from Elder Scrolls. They don't look grey or like a greyish blue like the Dunmer. They look purple to pitch black. And they have white hair, like actual pure white hair, like absence of colour level white hair. Like even more that than, I mean, the high elves have platinum hair. They don't have white hair. It's different. It's different. Depends. I mean, but yeah, and they have that skin. They have white hair, and they have their eyes is the biggest part of them. Their eyes basically look like actual stars in the sense where if you look into their eyes, it's like looking into the actual galaxy. It's like looking into the galaxy, looking into the universe type shiz. But you shouldn't do that, because I have lore here, and it basically says if someone who isn't like a night elf looks into a night elf's eyes for too long, they will go into a catatonic state, because basically what they're doing if they look at a night elf's eyes is they're receiving a bunch of cosmic information that a normal person could not handle without having some kind of a seizure or a stroke or something, some kind of brain aneurysm. So basically, if you look into a night elf's eyes, you're going to go basically brain dead. If you look into a night elf's eyes, you'll go brain dead. So they wear blindfolds over their eyes. But here's where it gets really interesting. So remember how I said this, I retconned this? Well, basically, the night elves, they don't care that they have to wear blindfolds around people because they can just see through them. They can see all sorts of different spectrums like infrared and all that night vision stuff, that heat sense. They can see all of that sort of stuff. They can literally see through their blindfolds, basically, so it doesn't matter to them. But their appearance, to me, is kind of like if you took, was it the Skybound elves from the Dragon Prince and the Star-Touched elves from the Dragon Prince, and you combined them together? That is basically what the night elves look like. And that eye ability, that the ability to see in different spectrums, does not come from the curse. That originates from the fact that the night elves are technically the most genetically similar to the very first elves on what was Elfheim. But the high elves refuse to believe that. The high elves believe in their own genetic superiority. You know how in the Elder Scrolls universe, the Altmer believe they're the closest to the Oldmer? It's the same thing, basically, except they're not. They're literally not. The Night Elves are. It's just that they were given a curse. Maybe their skin is a result of a curse. Who knows? Maybe elves originally looked like that all along. Who knows? But genetically, they're actually the closest to the original elves. And the original elves could see in many different spectrums. But basically, yeah. Yeah. And the high elves see that idea as complete and utter blasphemy. But yeah, and on about the Dragon Prince, I mentioned this earlier, or I tried to mention this earlier, but I got interrupted. That is a peak show, absolute peak fiction in my opinion. That show is peak. If you disagree, fair enough. But if anyone's watching this video and wants to comment down below, please tell me if you've at least heard of the Dragon Prince show, and if you have, what do you like about it? Because I love that show. That show is awesome. That is, to me, that is peak fiction. I love it. And it makes me sad that the 7th season is going to be the last season, because I feel like they're kind of rushing the ending. But there you go. But yeah, the Night Elves look the most similar to, if you combined the looks of a Star-Touched elf and a Skybound elf from the Dragon Prince, that is what my Night Elves look like. I did a funny little illustration. There you go. That's with a blindfold. There's a blood elf. There's a blood elf there. Dang, this video is 15 minutes long. And there's a high elf. I'm not good at drawing. But there you go. Tell me what you think. If no one watches this video, fair enough, there you go, that's fine. This is not what I was originally... I had 10 minutes of a previous video, but I got interrupted at the end. But thankfully I was able to make this, which is actually 5 minutes longer than that original video. So there you go. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.